Hey, Professor Bishop, and anybody else who may stumble upon this, as I always like to start my vlogs with. So for my project 3, I picked the option of become famous, and I'd like to, from my project, I feel like I have a pretty interesting topic in becoming famous because I kind of picked a new type of fame, a relative type of fame, and for that, I kind of would like to talk about the idea of Twitter fame. That is something that has been a legit thing that has kind of came about and has become a new type of fame and a new type of celebrity within today's day and age. And I'd like to throw a couple examples of that here. As you can see throughout the list of all these tweets, when somebody tweets something and it really blows up and it really becomes famous, for more of an accurate term, I guess, you can really see kind of the reaction amongst their friends. Everybody's, of course it's sarcastic and it's kind of joking. Everybody's always like, hey, don't forget about me when you're famous. Can you sign my autograph now? This, that, and things of that nature. But it really does speak monuments to a really true and a really happening phenomena, in the sense that when somebody does create a viral tweet, they do become temporarily famous for the time that that tweet is popular. Their page is visited astronomically more than it ever would be had they not tweeted something like this. Their subject matter is getting a lot more views. Their pictures are getting viewed far more often. So their character, well, their social media character, because people only put themselves on social media how they like to be perceived, but their social media character is far more in the public eye and far more famous, and does have far more celebrity than it ever would have had this tweet not came into existence. So for my project, I'd like to go over the one time that I became Twitter famous over a tweet, and I'd like to delve into some of the things that came along with. So for my brief spell of Twitter fame, it actually came at on a pretty interesting topic, especially something that you rarely get famous for on Twitter these days. So essentially, in the situation, what happened was there was an initial tweet of a young girl who was on a train, and essentially a fairly crowded train, and she was essentially ministering to the crowd, like basically perpetuating and speaking on like Christian ideals, and basically I'm trying to tell people like, hey, this is my testimony, this is what happened to me, and I feel like it would really benefit you or anybody if they felt as though they wanted to join this sort of lifestyle and go along this path, and this could be beneficial to you. And somebody quoted it, saying, and a quote is essentially when you take a tweet and then you repost that tweet, but you also do it with your own caption. I know you're pretty hip on most things, Professor Bishop. I just didn't know if that was up your alley or not, so excuse me if you already know what to quote a tweet means. But so the quote says, "People are trying to go home, hand them an invitation to your church and sit down. If this was an Islamic or atheist person, y'all would be livid." So the person then went on to say, because they got a lot of responses for this. They went on to say, "I love me some Jesus, church, and gospel bops, but y'all be intruding and overdoing it. Some people don't want to hear all that, especially on a train." So the first tweet got over 183,000 likes. On Twitter, this is a lot. Twitter used to be fashioned in a way that went about things would get reposted just by retweets. They kind of changed the format so that you can retweet things, but you can also like them, which I don't quite understand, because if you do like something, then it gets reposted to your page for all of your followers to see anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, the original tweet got 183,000 likes along with 82 retweets. The following tweet about how I love Jesus, etc., but went on to get 6,000 tweets, so 6,000 likes, excuse me. So this was a very, very popular Twitter thread at the time. So being a Christian myself, if you do read the Bible and you do believe in these things, then it does say in verses in the Bible that you are supposed to minister to people, and essentially you are supposed to bring as many people towards these type of ideals that you can. not in intruding kind of way. It can be argued that her speaking on this train was intrusive, but not in a way that you're supposed to do these things. If you do believe in these ideals, you're supposed to do these things in a kind, in a loving, in a gentle nudging way, like essentially trying to expose people to what these ideologies could bring to them, as opposed to the crazy people that stand on Drexel's corner telling you, if you don't do this, and you do this, and this, then you're going to hell. That's not how it's supposed to work. So in response to this, I tweeted, if you really love Jesus, you'd have no problem with somebody professing the gospel. If someone who does follow these ideals does believe this, then they should also believe that people should be out ministering to people in the kindest way possible. Not try again. I'm not going to argue the fact that perhaps her being on this train was intrusive to those who were maybe making their car ride home, commute home, whatever. So yeah, this tweet, as you can see, got 1,290 likes. So when seeing this, one may not think only 1,000 people saw this. I wouldn't necessarily consider that fame. Well, if you look at the Twitter statistics, which you can do on your own tweets, when you look at the impressions amongst how many times people saw this on Twitter, you will see that it was viewed over 83,000 times. That is an astronomical number. That is more than a university worth of people seeing one tweet, engaging with a tweet. So this was definitely a hybrid time of fame for me, as after I tweeted that, my social media was in an absolute frenzy for the next couple days after that. And yeah, that's essentially what I want to talk about and answer some of the questions from the prompt, and how it affected me, how it affected those around me, in a sense. And so I kind of already went over what steps did I take to achieve fame. It was more like a step that wasn't even meant to get famous. I wasn't saying this like, I hope this gets a bunch of likes and I hope I can get Twitter famous. I was just kind of saying how I felt, which is sometimes how things happen on Twitter. Other people just agree with stuff and it just catches on. So how did your relationships with your friends and families change? Well, it was actually pretty interesting. All of my friends, this is like one of the interesting things about trying to maintain a Christian lifestyle, and why people don't necessarily approve of the Christian lifestyle so much, is that it appears very much the word bear with me here. Hypocritical. There we go. I kind of blanked out there, but yeah, it appears very hypocritical. And that is because you are trying to model yourself essentially after a man who lived perfectly, and no human is perfect. So basically, when you claim this and you're trying to profess this, and then you're doing things that are contrary to it, people look at you like a hypocrite. But that's not really what it's about. That's really, if you do believe in these things, that's really what Jesus came for. That's what he died for our sins. Not for us to just act in whatever type of way, but for us to be actively trying to better ourselves, but knowing that we are human and knowing that we are broken, so we are going to mess up along the way. So he was brought here to cleanse us of that and die as sacrifice for our sin. But just to explain and to give a background, so all of my friends are Christians, but as young people, it's hard to live a Christian life in college, and things are constantly coming up. So out of all of my friends, I'm not the most perfect. I'm not perfect by any means. However, I am the one that lives the closest to what an actual, like, it's kind of hard to say without trying to, because like I said, by no means am I perfect, but this is something that I'm actively trying to pursue and to better myself in just about every day. This is something that's constantly on my mind. So, and all my friends, like, it's something that they do talk about. But when this tweet came out and they saw like how much it started blowing up, I remember one of my friends just sending it to the group message and being like, so Justin's famous now. And they was just like, yeah, that, and another friend's like, yeah, that's that Jesus. And I'm like kind of like making a joke about it, but like then we all just like kind of went on to talk about like how much this thing had really blown up, and really that I was the one to say something like this. And some of them were actually kind of surprised that I would actually put something like that out on the internet, because people will tell you they're Christian like to their face, but to like actually put it out into the world for other people to know kind of puts it on like a different scale, if that makes any sense. So yeah, this wasn't anything that like my family saw or anything, because none of my family's on Twitter, but amongst my friends, and even not even within my close inner circle of friends, but I started to see a lot of people that I went to high school with where they wouldn't none of them said anything to me directly, but a lot, like when I tweet something, it's rare to have any interaction with people from my high school, but I saw a decent amount of people from my high school retweeting or liking this, and I found that interesting because it was almost a way of saying something without saying something. It's like, I haven't talked to you in a couple of years, but it's but to see that you actually support somebody that you know saying this movement, it was kind of like a lot of people kind of stood behind, from my high school, kind of stood behind this tweet. So I felt as though that was a pretty interesting dynamic. And interestingly enough, what I really took into equation was how did this change you as a person? And this was one of the most interesting parts about it. Once I saw how much this tweet really blown up and how many people were replying to it, I was just kind of like, whoa, like, this is wild. Now I got to reply to all these people. It's like, I don't necessarily have to, but at the same time, if you're going to say something like this, you need to stand by it, and you need to be able to defend your stance. So there were people coming at me with a whole bunch of negativity, people trying to argue my stance, people trying to say how stupid I was, how much Christians rule America and the double standards. But the one thing that I really, really, really wanted to keep in mind throughout all of this was really, it's like, okay, if you're going to be talking on behalf of Christians and saying what a Christian should be like, then you should be conducting yourself as no less than such. So as I was talking to people, I really tried to make it a best effort to, if I was going to say something, know what I was talking about, actually go to actually try and like read scripture, read and see like, how would you handle this situation. One of the more interesting points was people would try to reply with, I believe the verse was Matthew 5:6, and that is essentially when it says, don't be like people who are out in the open praying on corners only to get attention. When you pray, go and pray in a private place, and the Lord will know what you're doing. You don't need other people's recognition. And that was a decent amount of people's reply to the tweet, and I had to reply to them, essentially saying like, I see what you're trying to say here, but I believe you've misinterpreted it. If you do read the scripture, it says this is in referral to prayer, and basically in your personal communication with the Lord that has nothing to do with ministry, which is something that is touched on upon this verse, and this verse. And he essentially does tell us to go out and minister to people. If we were supposed to do everything in private, then nothing would, then the gospel essentially would never spread. So when replying to people, and I mean there was some really, really harsh tweets, like some really mean replies in a lot of this. But yeah, I really wanted to conduct myself in the most kind, polite, loving manner possible. If I disagreed with somebody, I would have to, I didn't want to say like, you're wrong for that, or you're stupid, or da-da-da. I'd just say, I understand that you feel that way. I can definitely see where you're coming from, and you do make a good point. Personally, I disagree. I think X, Y, and Z, and here's why. Yeah, and hopefully, and anytime somebody came with absolute absurd negativity that you just can't reply to with logic to, I just say, honestly, I don't know why you're so angry, but I'm praying for you, and have a great day. And on a couple of occasions, what I found pretty interesting, what happens so much on the internet is people are so negative to each other, they just expect that negativity back, and when they don't get that negativity back, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that. So there was a couple people who they would like come into my message just so mean, so angry, so trying to just bring me down or provoke a negative response out of me. And I just came back with, have a good day. Hope everything's all right with you, and really just want you to be happy, go about life in a way that would do that. And a couple people are just like, wow, well, thank you. Have a good day too, which was definitely one of the things that I found really interesting about it. So yeah, this temporary bit of fame definitely exposed a lot to me. Some of the main things being, when you do have any type of fame on you, you do need to realize what that carries, and not only does it carry the representations of yourself, but it carries the representations of things that you associate with. So when it comes to fame and celebrity and things of that nature, it's very important to keep that in mind and always remember that not only are you at stake, but your family name is at stake. The groups you associate with are at stake. All types of different things factor in when fame is at play. One of the other things that I was definitely exposed to me is that people are always going to be negative, no matter what good you tried to say. Or good is also relative. This was my good. It may not be good to somebody else. But no matter what good you try to say, or no matter how much positivity you try to promote, especially in the day and age of the internet, there will always be somebody who disagrees. There will always be somebody who's trying to fire back with negativity. There will always be somebody who's trying to make you look dumb and trying to disclaim your whole point. Not even in an argument sense, there will essentially, haters gonna hate. Essentially, no matter what it is, no matter what you're doing, if any type of fame or celebrity has been achieved, people will always come back with negativity, always. So it's just always important to conduct yourself in a manner where to make it hard for them to come back with that kind of negativity. And yeah, those were the two most important things. It took about a full week for my mentions to finally just completely stop getting responses to this tweet. Every now and again to this day, like, I'll get a like on it from some random person, I guess, who stumbled across it from a couple months ago. I don't know how people come across these tweets with the magnitude, of tweets that come out on a daily basis. But yeah, that was my my brief encounter with fame. It was great getting to do these video projects. What I liked most about them was not only doing them, I really like computer editing, recording, talking, all that types of things. But I really liked how much it exposed me to really think in depth about some of these things that I'd already thought about, but now you kind of have to think about them on a deeper and academic level. So that was one of the things I really appreciated. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, Professor Bishop, and whoever may else be watching this. Thanks for a great term, and hope to see you around.